People say Zachary is aloof and noble, but he chased me like a dog for 10 years. Until I was pushed into the sea of fire, he did not hesitate to abandon hundreds of millions of assets and follow me. In my new life, I decided not to be a bad woman who hangs on him, and treat him wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, he seemed to be reborn. Livia, you still want to train me like a dog like in your last life, huh? I was forced into a corner by him and signed a divorce agreement. He said he would never want me in this life. Absolutely not. 01 When I was 11 years old, 5 of my fingers were broken by someone. From then on, I swore that I must become a person who stands at the top of this world. No matter what means, no matter what means. Later, I did a lot of bad things, and finally I was retaliated and pushed into the sea of fire. When I was engulfed by the flames, I didn't think about anything, but a white figure broke into my eyes and hugged me tightly. It was Zachary, my husband, the man who loved me to death and had no stain in his life except me. When we turned into ashes together, I thought, if there is a next life, I will be good to him with all my heart. 02 This is the divorce agreement. Sign it. The light made my thoughts sway. The man standing opposite lowered his eyes, hiding the coldness in his eyes. Zachary. Don't do this. I tried to hold his hand. Veins throbbing, his hand twitched quickly. This is the first hour and 41 minutes of my rebirth. I suddenly felt inexplicably relieved. Zachary finally found out that I was a bad woman who cheated him of his money and his feelings. He didn't want me anymore. 03 I sat in the cake shop, looking through the thin glass at the two swaying figures in the teaching building opposite. Zachary must not know that I was secretly watching him solve the problem for the girl, and the girl was about to touch the corner of his clothes. Yes, in this life, Zachary should know who is kind and who is innocent. But I still propped up my chin and sent a message to the girl. Lily, how can you seduce your brother-in-law? 04 Lily is my sister. To be precise, she is a real daughter, and I am fake. When I was 12 years old, I was picked up by Livia's mother on a rainy day. Everyone thought it was a coincidence. Actually, it was not. In order to let Livia's mother pick up the pitiful me on that rainy day, I broke one of my legs alive. I want to be rich and prosperous, to be above everyone else, and never taste the humiliation of gnawing bones again. And Lily was found by Livia's family when she was 16 years old. She is always kind, innocent, and pure. What I can only get by breaking my bones, she gets it without doing anything. I hate her. I wonder why she doesn't have to fall into the quagmire and taste the pain. 05 I am such a vicious bad woman. So I suffered a lot in my previous life. Maybe Lily is really the same as those people described. She is the girl like a god, so I angered the god. In this life, the only person who loves me has also betrayed me. I curled up in the sofa, staring at the divorce agreement on the coffee table. Zachary, are you coming back tonight? This message lying on the phone has not been replied for 4 hours. Zachary is indifferent, and his friends always complain that he is a big piece of ice. But I never felt that in my previous life. I felt that he was my dog. He would come when he smelled my scent, always rubbed against me, and he would hold my hand as soon as my hand was empty. Don't say he won't reply to the message, he can give me 10 instructions for every one I say. But now, a message popped up. I thought it was from him, and hurried to see it, but it wasn't from him. It was Lily, a paragraph of text, and a picture. Sister, I don't mean to seduce my brother-in-law. I want to help my sister manage my father's business, so my brother-in-law just introduced some people to me. In the photo, the girl smiled sweetly and stood beside him. Like a perfect couple. 06 I called Zachary more than a dozen times. He didn't answer, and later simply blocked me. In fact, Zachary didn't understand the ways of the world the most. He was just an academic. In my previous life, I wanted to snatch some shares of my father's company from Lily. I asked him to help me win over those people from pharmaceutical companies. He did it without any complaints. I never considered that he was a professor at a prestigious university, so noble. How could he bend down to ask those people for help? I only remember one thing in my previous life. I talked about cooperation, got drunk, and called him to pick me up. The box was full of well-known figures. I leaned on the sofa, looked at the pale figure approaching me step by step, and called him over like teasing a dog. A very high-ranking medical professor, a man who never lowered his chin on weekdays. I must have felt very happy at that time when I was teased by me in public. Everyone thought he would slam the door and leave. But what did Zachary do at that time? He walked to me step by step, then he squatted down naturally and held my ankles. Closed the high heels. Raised his eyes, his brow bone was like a gentle mural. The temperature will drop at night, don't catch a cold. Livia, 07 Livia. He likes to call me that. But after rebirth, he never called me that. I sleep lightly, so I woke up when he came home. I lay there, wondering what he would do when he saw me defenseless, but no, he bypassed me and didn't even want to cover me with a blanket. I sat up and threw the divorce agreement on his back. The man paused slightly, and the lines of his back were beautiful and eye-catching. Don't break it. If I redraft it, you won't get as much. In the moonlight, I sat there and watched him speak calmly. A dark cloud hid in his pupils, mixed with dark coldness. I won't sign. I stared at him intently. He seemed to think it was expected, and nodded. Okay, then sue. Zachary, you fucking bastard. I rushed over to pull him, and he easily subdued me. The moonlight was curved, and I was pressed on the sofa by him. His hand pinched my neck, not gentle at all. I bit his tiger's mouth, and he didn't seem to feel any pain. But at some point, he suddenly let go. The gentle touch burned across my cheek. You will cry too. He left this cold and ambiguous sentence. He left me alone in the living room, and I pressed my eyes tightly. It seemed that this way, the tears would not overflow. Don't leave me. I made up my mind to say this when I was 10 years old. I will never say it again. 08 I will not sign the divorce agreement. The next day, Zachary withdrew from all cooperation with me. A large part of Zachary's family's industry is in the medical industry, and he is a top scholar in this field. I admit that I married him because of the profit in my previous life. I know he doesn't want me anymore, but when I found out that he transferred all the projects to Lily for cooperation, I still felt a dull pain in my heart for no reason. But I think this is right. In the previous life, he saw it clearly. Lily was so pure and clean, unlike me, who is used to using dirty means to achieve my goals. But his withdrawal from cooperation was equivalent to ringing the alarm bell for his peers. Suddenly, I was isolated and helpless. I was ready to please Zachary again. Zachary, are you in school? I made some food for lunch, will you take it over? I don't dare to expect him to still have feelings for me, but I really hope he can remember our old relationship and not be too extreme. I stared at the phone in my hand that didn't respond at all, and felt that I was too thick-skinned. We had such a quarrel yesterday, and it really came to the issue of interests. I had to beg for it. I planned to cook him some good dishes and send them back in person. Then I found a problem. I don't know what Zachary likes to eat. On the contrary, he probably knows what I like and don't like. After all, the most obsessed thing for Professor Zachary in his previous life was to feed me all kinds of delicious food. I'm not that delicate, but I like to act out in front of him. Zachary, your noodles are too hard. Zachary, who are you going to feed such soft noodles to? Zachary, I don't like spicy food. Zachary, when did you cook so lightly? This was the only time he was angry with me. His dark eyes stared at me, his tone cold and serious. Livia, do you think I will always stand by your side? I looked down at the nails and said to him, then get out. This was my answer, and he really got out. In the sub-zero weather, he went out without a coat, probably because he was choked. I sent him a message in the evening. Zachary, I miss you. The door was opened in a moment. I was suddenly hugged by him, mixed with the cold air outside. His tall nose was against my neck, and I heard him say, yes, I will always stand by your side. You see, for me in my previous life, it was easier to train Professor Zachary than to train a dog. When I cut my hand for the third time and it bled, and I stared at the unknown substance churning in the pot, I finally came back to my senses from my memories. I realized that I was not a talent for cooking. I ordered takeout from Linchuan Pavilion instead. Then put it in my own thermos anyway. There is no difference between what I eat at home and what I eat outside. Maybe. 09 I'm sorry, sister. I didn't know you brought food to teacher Zachary. He has already eaten the food I cooked. Lily stood in front of me, visibly flustered. Call me brother-in-law. I smiled at her and saw that her little hands hidden in her sleeves tightened a little. Zachary. I stood in front of the man who was eating with his head down. He ignored me, so I took the chopsticks from his hand. The lunchbox in front of him was replaced by mine. He lowered his head and looked at the dishes in front of him for a moment. The dark eyes finally focused on me. Look. I handed him my hand with a band-aid. I got 3 cuts to cook for you. I cooked for a long time, can you eat mine? I met his eyes, very calm. But the calmness seemed to be about to break. Finally, he sighed. Livia. The dish you made is exactly the same as Linchuan Pavilion's. Did you learn it from them? I pretended not to understand the teasing in his words. I just threw it away. Zachary, just tell me whether you want to eat it or not. It seems that many times, when I get angry, he will coax me with a soft temper. I am used to this, but I forget that this is not the me and him in the last life. But he still lowered his head and ate the seafood porridge in front of him spoonful by spoonful. He was very obedient, just like Zachary who did whatever I asked him to do in the last life. After eating, he looked at me who bent down to clean up the lunchbox for the first time. Livia. He called my name like a clear stream. I am allergic to seafood. It's been 2 lifetimes, and you still can't remember it. I was shocked and looked up at him. His wrist, which was so white that veins were visible, had a rash on it. Just show it to me. Will you be happy only if you torture me to death? 10 Zachary has a severe seafood allergy. From the time his wrist started to turn red to the time he kept coughing and finally had difficulty breathing, it took only a few dozen minutes. How can you let him touch a little seafood? The doctor said that if teacher Zachary had been sent here a little later, he might have died. Sister, you don't know such a thing? Why don't you even know this? At the door of the ward, Lily looked at me with red eyes, and her voice was already tinged with tears. I know that she likes Zachary. Otherwise, in my previous life, I would not have looked at Zachary more. Then? He knew it himself, didn't he drink it? I argued a little feebly, and at this moment, the door of the ward opened. The nurse nodded and said that the patient had woken up. I looked through the crack of the open door. Zachary was sitting on the bed, looking at me. I guess he took my words of defense to heart, his eyes were so empty, nothing in them, not even disappointment, nothingness. Livia rushed to his bedside. Teacher Zachary. How are you? I followed him, but the man who had been silent for a long time suddenly coughed. Livia. His voice was very low, and his ink-like eyes stared at me. My heart skipped a beat, and I subconsciously walked towards him. Can you never show up in front of me again? This was Zachary's request. I don't know why my reaction was bigger than his. He slammed the door of the ward with a dark face and left. Yes, I tried my best, I have no conscience, I am so bad. Then can't he stand by my side anymore? Can't he stand by my side no matter who I am? He wants Lily, not me. When I got home, I happened to see the doll lying on the sofa. It was the limited edition flying dragon he caught for me before we got married. He just gave it to me as an ordinary gift. At that time, I didn't know that in order to catch this dragon, he ran through 5 shopping malls and grabbed 4 claw machines. In the end, he gave me this dragon in a bar. That day, I made him drink a lot of wine, and his ears turned red. He was drunk and took the dragon out from behind. Livia. He called me. Can you look at me? He hid behind the dragon, holding its claws and greeting me. Can you let me stay with you? Even if. It was a very light sigh hidden beside me. Throwing away all the dignity of being Zachary. Even if I am a spare tire. It turns out that memories can really make people feel depressed in the middle of the night. When I walked to the door of Zachary's ward in the middle of the night, I thought so. It was very quiet in the middle of the night, and the curtains were half closed. I stood by his bed and looked down at the man who seemed to be uneasy even when he was sleeping. Zachary's face is indeed the capital that makes the girls in his college think about him day and night. With a high-nose bridge and pine-like eyebrows, he is always arrogant. How come, he has been haunting me for most of my life? I subconsciously moved closer, and suddenly fell into a pair of eyes as cold as a deep pool. I don't know when the man woke up, leaning against the head of the bed and looking at me. His eyes were so cold that I subconsciously took a half step back. Finally you hate me? I sniffed. I don't know why, in the hazy moonlight, I would suddenly pull up the corners of my mouth and say such a self-deprecating word to him. Are you surprised? He said this, and his pronunciation was very clear. Shouldn't I hate you? I felt that the black edge was magnified on him. He sat up, serious enough to break my heart. You are so selfish, utilitarian, and like to use despicable means. Shouldn't I hate you, Livia? But so what? Zachary, is this the first day you know I'm this kind of person? For some reason, I was easily aroused by him tonight. The night was dark, and it was the first time that I was not so comfortable in front of him. I grabbed his collar, and I think he was angry too, because the blue veins on his neck were particularly obvious. What's wrong? Don't you want me anymore? Or do you think Lily is a good person? So you are so affectionate with her? I tell you, even if you divorce me, I can't let you have a happy future. If you can't get it, destroy it. For people like me who live in the quagmire and can't see any dazzling light, it's impossible for them to reach the so-called happy ending. I showed my fangs to him familiarly, but I met his clear eyes. He leaned on the bed, raised one corner of his lips, and looked at me lightly. Livia. When did you become so anxious and easily provoked? You lose. I suddenly let go of the hand that was holding his collar. Yes, what am I doing? Exposing my own weaknesses. At this moment, if I want to find a way to overcome the current difficulties, the best solution is to please the man in front of me. I was most adept at doing this in my previous life. Looking at the man who is looking at me leisurely in front of me at this moment. I can't speak as if something is blocked in my throat. For a long time, the words, please, were swallowed by me. Instead, they were, okay, you wait, Zachary. I can do it without you. And I won't lose, don't lose, and I will never lose. I walked out of the ward in high heels. Tearing off with Zachary means giving up on his line. No matter how you look at it, it is a very inappropriate plan. But I don't want to bow to him. It was you who gave up everything to go to hell with me in the last life, and it was you who kept holding me. You tolerated my second-rate double-dealing for so long, and I have made up my mind to treat you well. I already treat you as a family. Why? I stared at myself in the mirror in the elevator. Fortunately, I walked so fast that he couldn't see my red eyes. Why did you tell me now? You are sober. 13 It's like being thrown back into the quagmire. Zachary's departure brought a series of chain reactions. Everything was repeated as in the last life. Lily gradually won everyone's favor, and I became a bad woman despised by everyone. The only difference was that Zachary, who had always stayed by my side in the last life, was gone. Miss Livia is really a good drinker. The middle-aged fat man approached me with a strong smell of alcohol. I took great pains to suppress the desire to pour the wine on his Mediterranean head. This cooperation is very important. My dad has already started to be disappointed in me. He intends to train Lily. Over the years, I have made too many enemies because I want to get promoted. And what will be the end of me, a helpless adopted daughter? It is possible that I will be kicked back to the original quagmire. President Walter is joking. I brushed my hair, and the man stared at me with his eyes wide open. But whenever he mentioned cooperation, he would naturally change the subject and take the opportunity to get me drunk. He is indeed an old fox. The discomfort of alcohol kept hitting my brain nerves. I squinted my eyes and drank a glass of wine amid the booing of the crowd. But in a trance, a neat figure just broke into my eyes. The door of the box was pushed open. Hey, Professor Zachary. You are finally here. The old man who just looked down on me and looked at me with lustful eyes immediately changed his face, and this was the first time I saw Zachary again after 3 months. He was still like a white lotus born, as if nothing in the world could touch him. President Walter. The man nodded calmly. I'm here this time. I want to introduce you to one of my students. After he finished speaking, I saw Lily timidly sticking her head out from behind Zachary. I finally understood what President Walter was hesitating about before. If his pharmaceutical company can get in touch with Zachary, it is possible that the market value will double in the future, and if Lily appears here, Zachary is paving the way. Needless to say, I have to give this cooperation to her. It's strange to say that Lily looks careless. But she can always accurately take away everything related to me. The cooperation is ruined. I was afraid that if I stayed a few more seconds, I would not be able to help but spill the wine in my hand. Half of it was spilled on President Walter's head, and half on Zachary's head. So I said hello in a fake way and walked out of the box, but after walking half of the corridor, I felt something was wrong. My body was too strange, as if something was burning. I felt top-heavy and weak. What did the old man buying to mix into my wine? The next second, I was suddenly pulled into a corner. 14 I struggled violently, but I couldn't use my strength. Hey, Miss Livia, just stop moving? Everyone knows that you are an abandoned child. Adopted daughter. I had a Zachary, but you ruined him. But if you are willing to sleep with me for one night, I might give you this cooperation. The greasy voice exploded beside my ear. This drug is very effective. My limbs were sore, so I had to make noise desperately, but this club is quite high-end, with good sound insulation, and no one around. I could only watch the man grinning and trying to put his hand into my skirt. But suddenly, footsteps came from the corridor. I have never identified Zachary's footsteps so clearly as I did at this moment. It was at that moment that I suddenly realized I was so familiar with him. I tried desperately to make some noise, but the man began to hold me down and pinch my neck, making it hard for me to breathe. For the first time, because of physical discomfort, tears fell down. Fuck you. I heard the man panting and threatening in my ear. Finally, when the footsteps were getting farther away, there was a little inappropriate noise. The footsteps stopped and walked towards us. I tried desperately to break free. I shouted silently, Zachary, come here quickly. I'm dying. But I don't know if the man was furious or what. The fingers pinching my throat pressed hard again. My heart was pounding, just when the footsteps were about to stop beside us. A timid voice of Tianchi suddenly came from the other end of the corridor. Teacher Zachary, there are so many people in the room, I'm so scared to be alone. Can you come and accompany me? Don't go to such a dark place. My footsteps suddenly stopped. My heart also fell into the endless darkness. 15 The next second, I was suddenly pulled out of the corridor with a faint light. The man's screams suddenly rang in my ears. Zachary seemed to have learned fighting for a few years, but I was also startled when the man flew out. Then, I fell into a not-so-warm embrace. Zachary, He took off his coat and put it on my disheveled body. The turmoil in my body surged more than twice because of his momentary contact. Inexplicably, I was particularly resistant to the situation going on like this. I struggled to get off him, but he held me tightly. My throat was sweet and I couldn't make a sound. More and more people came out of the box slowly, and then I saw Lily's aggrieved red eyes. My consciousness fell into a dark daze. I was awakened by the cold. The shower in the bathroom kept releasing liquid far below my body temperature towards me. The man who was watching me with his eyes downcast, I don't know what he was thinking. Give me clothes. I left. I wanted to get up, but found that my limbs were weak. When his hand touched me, I shuddered. I shook his hand away. In fact, in my previous life, I always treated Zachary like this. My temper was spoiled, and his indulgence in me in my previous life almost made me wanton. The drug that President Walter gave you has a very new ingredient. Are you sure you can get out? He looked down at me from the side, his expression ambiguous. My field is also drug research and development, and I know the after effects of this drug and how to get rid of it. And now, there is a perfect antidote standing in front of me. If it were me in my previous life, I would have wrapped my arms around his waist long ago. But now, I backed off. Suddenly, I heard a light sound of a belt being unbuckled. I shuddered for a moment, and then transparent water splashed. He grabbed my neck and kissed me. The process of removing the drug effect that no one likes to watch is omitted here. I felt like someone was pulled out of the pouring sea. My mind regained a little clarity. The slap was thrown hard. His face was tilted to the side by me. Zachary's facial features are extremely aggressive and good-looking, and his eyelashes are also very long. From my angle, they are still stained with fine water droplets. He laughed, like a withered flower that suddenly bloomed. You really throw it away after use. The sound of dripping water still echoed in the bathroom. Through the shimmering reflection, I looked at his eyebrows and eyes that were full of thoughts. Zachary, why do you want to lead Lily? You may pity her in your previous life, or you really like her. Zachary, as long as you have her in your heart. When you have to choose between two, don't choose me. I am not a person with a lot of emotions. I have been thinking about it for most of my life, but I still don't understand what love is. But I see everything the same. I want everything, the best. If he is distracted, then he is garbage. I don't lack garbage. Livia. His eyebrows and eyes were hidden in a dark cloud, and I couldn't see through it. We have lived a new life. What is the best way to go? You and I both know it, right? What? Is reason telling you not to repeat the mistakes of your previous life? Then get out. I splashed water at him. He didn't hide, but just looked at me with a pair of miserable eyes. Livia. He called me, his mouth on his lips, dispelling disappointment and hatred. It's not me who made the same mistake. It's you. You'll stick to the same path until the end, and you'll never repent even if you die. Right? I froze there, and the panic in my heart grew little by little. The man stood up, and the world outside was so dark. I was clinging to his shadow, his eyebrows and eyes fell on me, and I was confused. Don't let President Walter do it next time, he's too careless. The packaging of the medicine was not cleaned up. In the quiet bathroom, I listened to his words, which hit my heart. That drug came from your laboratory, right? He couldn't have known the formula before the cooperation. Today, so many people saw me protecting you. That's enough for you. After saying this, the man walked out of the bathroom. I was lying alone in the bathtub, half of my body was submerged in darkness. I looked up and stared at the dark ceiling. Yes, that's enough. I can't lose. President Walter looks a dozen or 20 years older than me, but he is actually my college classmate. I planned everything today. I was betting on whether Zachary would save me in public. If he saved me, it means that our relationship is not that bad, and I can use him as a bargaining chip to turn things around again. I won the bet. Now I guess there are many partners who want to inquire about the news and restart cooperation with me. But why am I so scared? The look in Zachary's eyes when he left, I suddenly realized that my heart. It turns out that I will also be so confused and flustered because of his disappointment. 16 Destruction at the root is an unremitting salvation for the soul. Why can villains in movies and TV dramas live so long? Maybe they are all like me, shameless and have abandoned too many things. At the end of the year, my position was finally consolidated again. Lily messed up several cooperations in succession, and as a capitalist father, she also turned her attention to me again. Things should have developed in a good place, but unfortunately, I mentioned it before. I did too much in my last life and made too many enemies, so after 3 consecutive social events, I was on my way home at midnight. When I was kidnapped into a white van by several men wearing baseball caps, I didn't feel surprised at all. Who asked you to kidnap me? I can pay twice the money, no, 3 times. Unequal negotiations are always based on pleasing the other party, so when I was pushed into the car, my mind had already turned several rounds quickly. Unfortunately, the other party was unmoved, and a knife was already placed straight on my neck. Tisk, it's not for money, it's for life. May I ask where I offended you? Before I finished speaking, the knife had already entered my skin. I closed my mouth, and a voice processed by a voice changer rang in my ears. Don't worry, I don't want your life. I just need you to do one thing for me. The tip of the knife traced along the blood vessels, reminding me all the time that my life was on the verge of going to the underworld. Call Zachary now. Ask him for the key to the YDX2 formula. YDX2, I remember this anti-cancer drug is about to be launched. Zachary led the research and development. Once it is launched, it may change the entire medical and pharmaceutical industry. Unfortunately, in my previous life, Zachary and I both died on the eve of its launch. I was hit by a car on the way to the press conference. He saw the wreckage of the car in the blazing fire, and rushed in without caring about anything and hugged me and burned to death. Not Buddy, I am just his ex-wife. Do you think I can get such an important thing? But I found it funny to hear the kidnapper's request. It is possible that they were deceived by the illusion I created. This group of people will think that Zachary is still the Zachary who I can call and send away at will. But only I know that I am now probably dead and he won't be able to make a ripple. Say you are being held hostage. Say you are going to die. The blade that cut through the skin finally drew a line of blood on my neck. The man withdrew his strength and put the tip of the knife against my chest. I really had no choice. From his tone, he was not lying. If I couldn't get this key, I would definitely not survive tonight. But YDX2 is probably all Zachary's hard work. Those people wanted the formula, probably to sell it before him. If I really asked, it would be equivalent to ruining Zachary's life. Compared with the life of a villain like me, Professor Zachary's brilliant and great future, it is obvious that I should sacrifice myself. It's a pity, I said, I'm a villain. Give me the phone. I can only say that I will try my best. The man was obviously satisfied with my understanding. Before the call was connected, I brewed for a while. First, I should cry with the right tone, and then my voice should be a little trembling. Say to him, Zachary, I'm dying, please save me. He likes me to give in to him the most. In this way, the chance of success is not 60% or 70%, but 30% or 40%. But the moment the call was connected, my thoughts were all gone. Hello. I listened to his voice answering my call softly, and it sounded like we hadn't called each other for 4 months. I thought about it for a long time. Thinking about Livia, aren't you the most selfish person? Thinking about Livia, don't you want to die? Thinking about Livia, you already owe Zachary so much, what's wrong with owing a little more? But in the end, I looked up at the moon outside the window. The moonlight tonight is so beautiful. I said, Zachary, happy birthday. I said, you idiot, you are so lucky, how come today is your birthday? Don't like me in the next life, idiot. I bumped into the tip of the knife. What is the biggest failure in life? A stingy and selfish ghost. One day, I generously gave away everything. It's so embarrassing. 17 I thought about being a good person. If I was born in an ordinary family, with a father and a mother. If I wasn't kicked and pushed by this person since I was a child. It's not that I don't want to be a good person. If I had lived till now, I would not be a good person. But the definition of a good person varies from person to person. I bankrupted a company, so its person in charge would not have to suffer the pain of the company's bankruptcy in the future. Am I a bad person? I am a very good person. However, I think Zachary is a good person in the broad sense of the word. After all, he has been upright in his life and has never done anything immoral. So, when he got close to me, all I could think of was, destroy him. Destroy him. I failed to destroy him, he was upright and incorruptible, and he was so different from me. I remember one night after we confirmed our relationship. He got up from me. I suddenly hooked my arm around his neck, and we were so close. His breath hit my face, and his burning eyes burned on me. Will you love me, even if I am a bad woman? I asked him almost artificially. His Adam's apple rolled slightly, and then he stared at me. The black eyes fell on me with the most sincere look and said, yes. The knuckles landed on the most sensitive part of the spine, and he bit my shoulder. It was easy. When did you stop being a bad woman? So I had destroyed him a long time ago, and it was useless to be unconvinced. The world has changed, and I don't believe that there are 100% emotions in this world. The only thing I am sure of is that he loves me. He did such a difficult thing, so if one day my broken life can have a gorgeous end, then I reluctantly allow him to give me the meaning of a grand curtain call. 18 I stared at the ceiling, up and down. Is this heaven? It's impossible. It's not because heaven looks too much like a ship's hold. It's the person sleeping next to me. How could Zachary and I go to the same place after death? Wake up. The person next to me glanced at me lightly, and then put the slightly slipped blanket back on my shoulders. Where are we? On the high seas. We're probably close to Copenhagen. That's because we're far enough. Why am I not dead? Do you want to die so badly? I turned my head to look at him. His eyes were dark and he didn't look very well. And his eyes looked a little fierce. I raised my hand and rubbed his stubble. Are you here to save me after all? What's the price, Zachary? Give up your medical identity and hand over YDX2. You can never get involved in this field, and you can never step into the domestic territory, right? I turned my head to the side of the ship, and a side of the ship framed the surging waves. My father was the one who ordered those people to kidnap me. I should have thought of it earlier. I have too much power, and he wants to pave the way for his own daughter. In the end, I am still the wild dog that was kicked casually by others. The sea breeze carried a faint damp breath. I leaned against him and tightened the blanket. Zachary, don't you have any complaints at all? He stared at me. Livia, I did a lot of things when I wanted to do them. I tried to take a different path, but that's not what I want. This world has many rules and regulations, black and white, but I can break everything about you. In the dim cabin, he gently touched my hand. I will accompany you for the rest of my life. I am so obsessed with you that I hate myself when you give up your life for me. My life is like this, so what's the point of lowering my status for you? He asked me what I was laughing at. I just feel that this world is too fair, like hell. I looked up. I have nothing, but I only have you. You have everything, but you have to take me. I whispered in my heart, Zachary, don't meet me in the next life. I rubbed his fingertips, and then interlocked our fingers. In this life, let me protect you. 19. Letter to Livia. Yesterday, my neighbor Mrs. Smith told me that she saw you wandering around the gate of the yard for a long time before going home. This morning, you ran out of the door without saying a word to me, saying that you were going to buy groceries. I think you must have heard the news from the other side of the ocean. YDX2 is indeed my hard work, and I had expected that the Livia family would achieve unprecedented success with it. To be fair, I feel that my hard work has been used by others to make wedding clothes, but it is not as painful as the fact that you have not spoken to me for 11 hours. I know that you and I have completely different feelings about feelings. You cannot understand my love for you. That kind of emotion transcends worldly meaning and life and death for me, so, you don't need to care whether it hurts me. After all, your reward to me with your drooping hands is enough. You hid in the room and cried last night, and I heard it. I suppress this morbid and crazy thought all the time. This is my violation of your mind, my sin. So, you don't need to blame yourself, don't blame yourself, just do what you want to do forever, whether it is publicity or humility. As long as it is what you want to do. By the way, answer a question you always like to ask me. Why did I fall in love with you? In fact, I have said it many times. That day, you were led by your father to open the door. Your brown scarf gently slipped off your shoulders. I saw you. What I mean is that there is no need for a reason to fall in love with you. Because it is you, there is never a reason.